Jeg har hodepine. Jeg trøtt. Det for varmt. Det for kaldt. Kjenner du det igjen? Vi har ikke løsningen på alt, men bedre inneklima, det kan vi hjelpe med. La oss skape renere luft med Panasonics varmepumpe som har innebygd nano-X-teknologi. Resten opp til deg. Å velge varmepumpe har aldri vært lettere. Ta kontroll med Panasonic HZ Flagship.
Jernverket som ukentlig podcast nærmer seg slutten. Jeg heter Helle Stenkløv, og i nest siste episode får vi høre hva Natur sa første gangen de besøkte Norge og Krater. Men du, før intervjuet noe jeg må si. For det ikke gratis å lage Jernverket, så om du vil støtte produksjonen av programmet, det helt genialt om du vil donere et par slanter. Det går an å trekke et fast beløp hver måned via patreon.com/jernverket, eller gi en enkeltsum via Vipps-nummer 567438. Informasjon og lenkene står i episodebeskrivelser, og beløpet selvsagt valgfritt. Bidraget går rett til Jernverket. Tusen takk for alt jeg har fått inn hittil. Jeg takknemlig for hver eneste kron. God kveld i stua, velkommen til Jernverket på Radio Rocks. Mitt navn Helle Stenkløv, og for knappe 2 uker siden, når det var Kraterfestival i Oslo, så traff jeg på Natur fra New York, som spilte den første konserten sin i Norge og Oslo. Jeg tok en prat med guttene, som dere snart skal få høre. De forteller blant annet hvor forferdelig det kan være å være signa på Earache, om et radioprogram som noen av dem har hatt, og om den gangen navnet deres ble stavet totalt feil utenfor en konsertsal. Herre og mye mer i kveld, men først ønskelåt fra Nature, sure, Mindless Sinner, Live and Die.
This is the Executioner. This is Wyvis.
Dino Destroyer.
This is Tooth Log from Nature, and you're listening to Jernverket in Norway.
Amulet fra England funnet ut at de skulle gi ut en heavy metal undergrunnssamlis. Den heter Well Heavy, volum 1, og kommet litt tidligere i år. Der finner vi blant annet Nature med Poison King, som vi nettopp fikk her på Jernverket og Radio Rocks. Og Nature spilte sin første konsert i Oslo og Norge for knappe 2 uker siden, under Kraterfestivalen. Jeg traff på guttene på et hotellrom og tok en liten prat med Executioner, Tooth Log, Dino Destroyer og Weibust. Hvordan startet egentlig Nature?
We started, what year was that? 2008. We started, me and Tooth, are both from Rhode Island, and we were moving down to New York, and I had a previous band called Damassic. Tooth, his other band, Narwhal, we used to play together a lot, and our drummer left Damassic. He filled in for our drummer and started playing music together, and moved down to New York, and Damien wanted to start a band, so we got together as a 3-piece, and originally the bass player from my old band Damassic was going to play bass, and
I was playing guitar at that point.
Yeah, and then neither of us were really good guitarists, so
we weren't Dino.
Yeah, we needed a shredder, and we were playing with Dino's other band, Total Social Suicide, a lot, and Tooth suggested that Dino... Actually, Tooth told us that Dino had he thought he knew of a guy that had a Judas Priest tat. And I don't know, that sounded pretty good to us. It turned out he didn't have a Judas Priest tat, he had a Judas Priest hat that he lost. But
no longer on it.
We thought he was pretty cool with a Judas Priest tat. Yeah. So we were like... But the reason he got in, though, is because the bass player from Damassic that was playing with us quit when we sent him some recordings. Like, you guys don't have the chops.
Yeah.
You need some.
He wasn't impressed.
So
yeah, Dodds, the bass player, quit, and so he switched over to bass, and
I just came in and filled the guitar duties immediately. Yeah.
Fit like a glove.
Kind of like that was it right there in a nutshell.
Originally we were called Blood Beast. I don't know, it didn't really fit what we were doing.
Represent the music quite right.
Yeah.
We have Blood Beast recordings that are pretty cool, though.
Yeah.
Do they differ from the Nature we know today?
Yeah.
What kind of music was that?
It's heavy metal, but it's a bit more rock and roll.
Yeah.
It's like old sound. It's just like kind of 70s rock kind of.
Quite heavy.
Yeah.
And one song called Purple Princess.
All the songs are basically about like the weed that we were buying from the delivery dealers, and all the weed that we would buy had different names on it, so we would like write songs about like the weed character or whatever.
Yeah.
We were high a lot.
But then
we were like,
it just didn't fit.
Yeah, it was
kind of. That wasn't. Started writing closer to the way we write now, and it was just kind of didn't really match. You know, it was like a weird. When we play that song in the set, it just kind of was a departure in a way.
It just wasn't nasty. We wanted to make just some nastier, scarier sounding shit.
Det sa Toothlog trommis i Nature. Og bandet mener det at du må ha litt mer satan i deg for å kunne skrive ordentlig god heavy metal.
You know, we just took a lot of inspiration from horror movies and you know, the evil side of things.
It should sound like intense, I guess, but not like.
Not always about like just fucking partying and chicks and.
That's for the rock and roll.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that. It's great. That was another thing when we started. We had some songs about like cold cuts and beer and stuff like that. And
sandwiches and shit.
It didn't have the same effect. I don't know. Just
cougars.
It's fun to play. It's always like fun to write songs about like stuff we enjoy, like everyday life. But it's much more interesting to write songs about things that only happen in dreams.
You have to use your imagination a little more, I guess.
For many centuries ago, Norge met.
Det her er Radio Rocks og Jernverket. Vi fikk Neptune med Enemies plukket ut av Nature fra New York. Og vi møtte Nature under Kraterfestivalen for et par helger siden. Og de fikk jo en drømmeavtale. I hvert fall kan det kjennes sånn for mange band når et plateselskap velger å signe dem. Men det å være på Earache, det var ikke noe særlig, forteller Nature.
We were signed to Earache Records like from the UK, and it was pretty much a mistake for us. Like we're way too small of a band and not always like we don't have like the means or you know the time to be full-time musicians, and that like to be on a big label like that they expect that from you, and we didn't really like their you know their
we
policies.
never really saw eye to eye with them ever on anything.
Yeah, they were taking a chance with us when they signed us in the first place.
Yeah.
They just started doing things behind our back too that we didn't know about or you know weren't.
They would
about.
we would shoot photos, like promotional photos, and they would ask to see the selects, you know, and the photographer would put a watermark on it just so when they wanted to use the photo, ideally they would pay him for it, but they never paid him anyways. But they ended up taking those photos and using them with like the photographer's watermark basically over our faces, you know, just like really unprofessional stuff like that. They would like make shirts that we didn't authorize, and
they'd put up rough mixes
merch
up on their site or whatever.
There was like some kind of communication barrier with them like pretty much the whole time. And we had some, you know, they put out a great product with our album, but it was it's so fucking expensive, like, so that was like a big problem for us. We could never get our own records because they were costing us like about $14 a piece, so we were kind of like always distant from them, and you know, attempted to get fired. We had said some stuff in other interviews and stuff where we were like, people were like, oh, how's being on Earache? We're like, well, it fucking sucks. Like, this is why, and all this shit. And hoping that they would just release us from the contract, to be like, oh, fuck these guys, but they never did. And then in the spring of this year, we got an email that just said, hey, you know, we had a good run, but we have to pull the plug on Natur, so you guys are now free agents. And we thought it was the best day of our band's history when they fired us.
There was one guy Al Dawson, and he was like the only guy in our court. And when he sent that email, he was like genuinely like bummed, because he basically said like, this label doesn't care about heavy metal anymore. It's all they care about is like shitty rock and roll bands. So, and we were really happy when we got that email, because now we can kind of do whatever we want. It was being on a label like that kind of limits you. You think it would open up a lot of doors, but actually closes a lot of doors. As far as like doing 7 inches, like split 7 inches with bands and stuff like that.
We always wanted to do a split with Necromantheon, and we always wanted to do some kind of comp with Occulta from Germany, and the label just never would authorize anything like this. So
they didn't really support us touring either. Like, we had a South by Southwest gig playing with Cro-Mags and Fear, and it was kind of a big show. And they were, we don't do South by, we're not going to give you any money. Or they were going to lend us the money.
Yeah, they want to pay back.
So. Yeah.
But they weren't really supporting us when we needed it.
Du hører et intervju med Natur på Jernverket og Radio Rocks. Det å være signet på et stort plateselskap var ikke noe særlig for et band som dem. Men nå kan de gjøre akkurat hva de vil.
The next step is we're going to release a single, like probably record it still this year, and we'll have Electric Assault put that out, which is a label from Brooklyn, Henry.
He's been working with Antichrist and like The Oath and Stone Dagger
stuff. Yeah, Sonic Ritual, all these
Grave Mass
bands.
Natur fra New York på Jernverket og Radio Rocks. Vi skal snart høre mer fra dem etter det her og Trouble med Psalm 9.
Jeg har hodepine. Jeg er trøtt. Det er for varmt. Det er for kaldt. Kjenner du det igjen? Vi har ikke løsningen på alt, men bedre inneklima, det kan vi hjelpe med. La oss skape renere luft med Panasonics varmepumpe som har innebygd nano-X-teknologi. Resten er opp til deg. Å velge varmepumpe har aldri vært lettere. Ta kontroll med Panasonic HZ Flagship.
Hittil i år har Telenor stoppet over 20 millioner svindelanrop. Vet du hvilke nummer du kan stole på?
For sikkerhetens skyld har vi inkludert viktige sikkerhetstjenester i våre mobilabonnement, slik at du blant annet skal kunne føle deg litt tryggere når det ringer fra ukjente nummer. Bli tryggere med mobilabonnement fra Telenor. Se Telenor.no.
I kveld det Natur som gjeste-DJ på Jernverket og Radio Rocks Trouble med Psalm 9 der. Og Natur har et tett bånd til ganske mange norske og svenske band. Men hva egentlig grunnen til det når de holder til på andre siden av dammen?
Back in the MySpace days, Proxy stumbled upon our MySpace page, and she started emailing us, and then she was coming to the States with Obliteration and Necromantheon. And me and Tooth were down at Maryland Death Fest, and we ended up hanging out with those dudes. And then they came to New York, played a show in New York, and we all jammed at our practice space, and just kind of been.
And then like the Fenris thing, Band of the Week.
Yeah, I guess Proxy was listening to it with Fenris, and just after we had met Obliteration and her, or whatever, and then it was back when Band of the Week was kind of fresh and new, and it was like exposing us to so many like underground bands from Europe. And then when we went to Live Evil, we finally, we got to see really what the fuck is what when it comes to underground heavy metal. It's just something like it
was a nice meeting of the minds at that festival.
Yeah, solidified.
Everyone was kind of on the same page on what they were doing.
The talent coming out of Europe was really impressive. The most important underground acts now are, still in Norway and Sweden, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, I think you probably sound a little bit more like European bands rather than any other American bands. I can't think of any other American band that sounds like us or plays a style.
Yeah, especially in Brooklyn.
Yeah, especially there.
It's like the scene there is like not our sound.
Yeah, what's the trend in Brooklyn? And
black metal.
That and like sludge metal.
Crap.
Sludge metal. Yeah.
It's pretty popular.
Screamy.
Post metal.
Post this, post that.
Mm-hmm. We're all buddies with everyone. It's a small city, but for being a huge city, but the music is just like kind of fucked. I feel like we relate to the guys in Flight and Necromantia and Obliteration more so than even any other bands in the States. Like we're all doing we're on the same plane, on the same level. All just working schmucks.
Det er Jernverket og Radio Rocks Black Sabbath med Supernaut ønsket av kveldens gjester og DJ-er Natur fra New York. Og det er ikke bare Jernverket som spiller heavy metal på radio. Natur, de har faktisk lefla med det samme selv. Vibust, som er vokalist og gitarist, og Tooth på tromma, hadde selv et metal-radioprogram som het The Metal Inquisition. Men hvordan gikk det egentlig med dem?
We had that show for like 3 years, and basically the whole time the producers of the station were just giving us a hard time, saying that we needed more listeners and we needed to be more professional and to like stop being drunk on the air and all this stuff, and we're like, fuck, this is like
that was
not what we
that was kind of the
do.
whole point of the show. It was an online radio station like right on First in New York, and it was literally like this, like a glass window and the streets right there. And so it was like the perfect platform for a radio show, like to be on the street in New York City, just constant weirdos coming in there, bums, just like bachelorette parties, And but yeah, they had shows 24 hours, just like all different genres. We were the only metal show on there. There was like a hardcore show that we would go on after, and that was like pretty intense crowd to like walk in. It was like Vinny Stigma and like all those dudes just like hanging out. It's pretty awesome.
All like the Cro-Mags guys and all the fucking Murphy's Law and all these like crazy guys in there all the time. Just think we're gonna get beat up, but they were really cool.
They were cool to us.
But they kicked us. They eventually, the last straw was something like it was the anniversary of Randy Rhoads' death, and we're like, yeah, we're gonna play some Randy Rhoads. He died 30 years ago today, and
it was like 31.
And it was 31 years ago, and we were like, we didn't care. We're like, whatever, we fucked up, doesn't matter. And the guy was just like, that's it, I'm pulling the plug on your show. Like, you guys suck. Like, you need a fact checker and all this shit. And we're like, fuck you, man. So I was on tour with Occultation at the time that had happened, and I was on the phone with Ryan. We're back and forth. I'm calling the producer, telling him to go fuck himself. It's like this whole thing. Then Ryan went in, stole all the shows, so we could listen to them forever. And then they asked us to come back, and we were just like, no, like, we're done with you.
They basically put us on probation, and they were like, you guys are on probation until you get like a producer that is like gonna basically do your they just wanted our show to be like the Eddie Trunk show, like he would just always nitpick every little thing that we did wrong. And like he for one, we like hated Twitter, and we didn't want to be on Twitter, and he's like, you guys have to be on Twitter. And like, so we'd just like do it as a joke. We would just like write really stupid shit on Twitter, and then he'd start criticizing our tweets. He would like email us like, this is a bad tweet. Like it was just like getting to that point where it was like we weren't getting paid to do it. We were doing it for our like just to promote our friends' bands, like new, up and coming metal bands. And it was just, he was giving us a lot of shit for something we were doing for free.
I think we were pretty successful for what it was. We had like Dave Chandler from St. Vitus. We had Mark the Shark from Manila Road. We had fucking Rob Halford in the studio with us. Like,
he was the coolest guy ever.
6 months later, the entire station is gone.
Yeah, just shut
like
down.
it just shut down. So,
dude, I think
it was on its way out anyway.
Tooth og Vibest fra Natur fortalte om radioprogrammet sitt Metal Inquisition som de hadde tidligere. Nå radiotida deres forbi, men de i gang med TV og forteller kort om The Uncle Freddy Show som de holder på å planlegge.
We filmed an episode with Antichrist last year actually when we went on tour with them. So it's
that was about exactly a year ago.
Yeah. Once the first episode gets going, it's just like building the whole like platform for it, and then hopefully it'll go a little smoother. But it'll mostly be like put out on DVDs and just shoot them and ship out through like probably Electric Assault's mail order or something like that. I don't know.
Beer Drinkers and Hellraisers hvem andre enn CC Top på Jernverket og Radio Rocks. Og det Natur som styrer musikken her i kveld. Vi gjorde et intervju med dem under Kraterfestivalen for et par vekker siden, og de fortalte noen av de beste Spinal Tap-historiene sine til oss.
Our first marquee that we were playing with High on Fire, and we roll up to the venue, and it's like High on Fire, blah blah blah, Tunar. They like misspelled our name. Tunar. That was like
all the same letters, but just
Tunar,
scrambled, jumbled.
I mean, that's as Spinal Tap as you can get right there.
The guy came out and fixed it right away.
He fixed it, but yeah.
It was funny though, pulling it up, and it was like Tunar.
We did a little tour last winter, and we were supposed to play 3 shows in Canada.
Oh yeah,
and
2.
We ended up getting denied at the border 2 times, so we ended up only playing 1 show. But the first time we got denied was pretty funny because the Canadian Border Patrol is pretty strict they're pretty good about finding bands that are trying to sneak across the border. And so we didn't bring any of our, nothing, no equipment, no merch at all. We had 2 Nature tapes in the van, but we also had other bands' music too, so didn't think they would single it out. For some reason they singled out the Nature tapes, and Dino had one in his backpack, pulled Tooth over, and he had one in his pocket. He had a Nature patch in his pocket, and so they immediately realized they're like, are you in this band called Nature? And we're like, yes. And they're like, are you playing a show tonight? And we're like, no, we're not playing anything, because we took everything off our Facebook and everything. And so they brought us into the questioning area, and we're all sitting there, and the guy sitting at a computer calls us will the band Nature please come up here? And we're like, so he's like, so you're not playing a show tonight in Canada, right? No shows in Toronto. We're like, no shows. He's sitting there looking at a flyer for the show. Just basically blatantly lying to the Border Patrol. So they weren't too happy about that. They threatened to ban us for a year, and
it would have really fucked us because we were playing
We just played a festival there.
Wings of Metal in August. So
I drove Deathhammer across the border when they were there. I needed a ride to Canada that day, and they were going to Canada, so I just offered to drive them. And when we got there, I got so nervous. I was thinking if there's one band that'll never get into Canada, it's going to be Deathhammer. And if they don't get in, I'm fucked. I'm leaving for Europe the next day. I have to get in. And we went in there, and it was the shortest border experience ever. And the guy took our papers, swiped them, and was like, you guys are all good to go. I was like, what? How is this possible?
Du har hørt et intervju med Nature fra 2014. Likte du det, kan du høre pratene med Cauldron, Black Viper og Ranger. Neste vekka kommer siste episode i Jernverket som ukentlig podcast, og den blir ganske spesiell. Jeg tok nemlig med meg opptakeren og ble med Svartalv Destroyer på tur i hans ungdoms fotspor.
Skogen bak her herfra og bort til Kolbotn på Kongeveien, så det tatt 1 million black metal-bilder, for det var det eneste stedet du kunne gå og være litt fra selv oppe i skauen her.
Selv om podden nærmer seg slutten sånn som du kjenner den, så bør du lell abonnere på Jernverket podcast via podcast-app eller gå inn på jernverket.com. Fortell alle du kjenner om podden, og legg gjerne igjen en god anmeldelse der du lytter. Og hvis du vil bidra med noen kroner for at jeg skal kunne fortsette å lage noen spesialer i ny og ned, kan du gi støtte via Patreon eller Vips. Infoen ligger i episodebeskrivelser. Husk på å følge Jernverket på Instagram og Facebook. Der får du oppdateringer om hva som skjer fremover. Akkurat nå kan du vinne 2 audiopain-skiver fra Katakomben og Duplicate Records. Jeg heter Helle Steinkløv og nå inne i siste ordinære sesong med Jernverket, men det blir hardrock-intervju hver fredag til og med 2. juli. Etter det får vi se hva som skjer, men jeg klarer nok ikke å holde meg helt unna. Vi høres!
Over 70% av alle nye nettsider laget kun for å svindle oss. Er du sikker på at du klarer å gjennomskue alle?
For sikkerhetens skyld har vi inkludert viktige sikkerhetstjenester i våre mobilabonnement, slik at du blant annet kan surfe sikrere. Bli tryggere med mobilabonnement fra Telenor. Se Telenor.no.